Your 3-year-old is on the floor of the cereal aisle screaming, fists pounding the linoleum, and you can feel every stranger's eyes on you. Your voice comes out sharper than you meant it to. Stop it, right now! It doesn't work. It almost never works. Now picture a Japanese mother in the exact same aisle, same screaming child, same audience of strangers. She doesn't raise her voice once. She doesn't bribe, threaten, or drag the child out by the arm. She kneels down, gets quiet, and within a minute, the screaming stops. Not because the child gave up, but because something in them settled. So what does she know that turns down the volume without ever raising her own? It starts with understanding what a tantrum actually is, because most Western parents are responding to the wrong thing entirely. A tantrum looks like defiance. It is almost never defiance. It's a nervous system that has been overwhelmed past its capacity to self-regulate, and the child has no other language for that yet except their whole body. Yelling at a dysregulated nervous system to calm down is a little like shouting at someone drowning to simply swim better. The instruction is correct, the delivery makes it impossible to follow. Compare that to the instinct most Western parents have been trained into. The child melts down, the parent's own stress spikes almost instantly, and a battle begins. Two nervous systems escalating each other in real time. The parent raises their voice to be heard over the crying. The child, sensing the parent's own dysregulation, escalates further, because on some primal level, the most frightening thing for a small child isn't the tantrum itself. It's realizing the calm adult who's supposed to be in charge has lost their footing too. Here's the question worth sitting with. What if the fastest way to end a tantrum isn't controlling the child's emotions, but controlling your own first? Japanese parenting leans heavily on a concept that doesn't have a clean English translation, kokoro wo shizumeru, which roughly means to settle the heart, and it's applied first to the parent, not the child. Before any words are spoken to a dysregulated toddler, the expectation is that the adult brings their own nervous system down to a place of stillness, because a child in crisis is, on a biological level, looking for an anchor, not an instruction. This connects to research on co-regulation conducted by developmental psychologist Ed Tronick, whose work, while not specific to Japan, explains the mechanism Japanese parenting seems to apply instinctively. Tronick's research demonstrated that infants and young children don't yet have the neurological architecture to self-soothe independently. They borrow regulation from a calm adult nervous system nearby, almost like plugging into an external battery. A parent who is yelling, however justified the yelling feels in the moment, simply isn't offering a steady battery to plug into. Now, here's where it gets specific. In Japanese parenting practice, when a tantrum begins, the typical first move isn't a command, it's physical lowering. The parent crouches or sits down to the child's eye level, often in silence for several seconds before saying anything at all. Researcher Joseph Tobin, who has spent decades comparing early childhood practices across Japan, China, and the United States, documented this pattern repeatedly in Japanese preschools, where teachers consistently lower their bodies and soften their voices in direct proportion to how loud a child becomes, doing the opposite of what panic usually pulls an adult toward. This looks, to many Western observers, like it should be slower, weaker, less effective than a firm verbal correction. It is the opposite. A racing nervous system cannot calm down by matching a louder, faster one. It can only calm down by syncing with a slower one nearby. The same reason a crying infant often settles against a parent's chest. Not because of anything said, but because of a steady heartbeat to entrain to. Compare this to what happens when a Western parent raises their voice to win the moment. It often works, briefly, through fear rather than regulation. The screaming stops because a bigger, scarier sound just overpowered a smaller one. But the nervous system underneath hasn't actually settled. It's gone into a freeze response, which can look like compliance, while leaving the original overwhelm completely unprocessed, just buried until the next trigger surfaces it again, often within the hour. Here's the research that makes this concrete. A study published in the journal Child Development, examining parental affect during toddler distress, found that children whose caregivers maintained a calm, lowered vocal tone during meltdowns showed faster physiological recovery, measured through heart rate, than children whose caregivers responded with raised voices, even when the raised voice was a clear, simple instruction. The content of the words mattered far less than the nervous system delivering them. This is the part that connects directly back to calm kids more broadly. A child whose tantrums are consistently met with a settled adult nervous system gradually learns, through hundreds of repetitions, what regulation actually feels like from the inside, because they've borrowed it enough times to eventually generate it themselves. A child whose tantrums are consistently met with yelling learns something else entirely: that big feelings are met with bigger ones, and the safest move is to suppress, not process. So what does this actually look like, practically, for you? It doesn't mean staying silent and stoic while your child screams in a grocery store, or never feeling your own frustration spike in the moment. It means, before you speak, doing the one thing that takes the most discipline of all: lowering your own volume first, even slightly, even when every instinct says raise it to be heard. Crouch down. Slow your own breathing visibly enough that your child can see it. Say less than you think you need to. The hardest part isn't finding calmer words. It's tolerating the impulse to fix the chaos instantly with volume, the same impulse that makes yelling feel so immediately satisfying, because it feels like regaining control fast, even though what it's actually doing is adding a second dysregulated nervous system to a room that already has one. The hardest part is staying steady while your child is not, sitting in the noise and the stares and the mess on the floor, without reaching for the loudest tool available. That steadiness is yours to build, not theirs to inherit instantly. And every time you bring your own volume down instead of matching theirs, you're not letting the tantrum win. You're handing your child something no amount of yelling could ever install. Proof that it's possible to feel everything, all the way through, and still come back to calm. Because the real question was never about cereal aisles, or strangers staring, or how loud a voice needs to be obeyed. It was about whether your child has been given enough moments to borrow calm from you, again and again, until one day, they don't need to borrow it anymore.